Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas filled with family, friends, and of course, football. In today's video, I'm going to look over the winners and the losers from week 16. Try to get you guys all the information you need to know going into your fantasy championships. If you have made it this far, you are one game away from fantasy glory. My goal is to try to help push you over the top and bring home the title. I've kind of mashed together some what did we learn from the week to how we can use that for the final week as well. Gonna try to serve that up into a single plate of fantasy goodness. Now, if you have not been to Relentless Press before, thank you so much for joining us today. Please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm dropping 10 videos or more every single week. I usually drop a Monday all the way to Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific. That way you know when they are gonna be available. I not only do rankings on Wednesdays and Thursdays, but on the weekends, usually Saturdays right before the games on Sunday, I do updated ranking shorts as well. So if you have 5 extra minutes over the weekend, you can get my new thoughts based on all of the information that we learned from the middle of the week. So make sure you keep your eyes open for those as well. Drop a like while you're there. And if you find yourself enjoying this video today, like it as well. That helps get the content out to those who have not seen it yet. It helps me out a ton and I greatly appreciate it. To all of my current subscribers out there, thank you guys so much for all of the support you've given me thus far. Let's continue to move forward together. We are on our way to our first 1,000 subscribers. With that done, let's get into this version of my Relentless Rundown. We'll start with the Thursday game, the Jags grounding the Jets 19-3. My biggest winners from this game was Travis Etienne. He had 25 touches in this one, making him a true workhorse, which he has basically been all season, although that had faded as of late. I think next week he rolls in a huge way against Houston. The other one is Garrett Wilson. He gets to avoid our benches because it looks like Mike White has been cleared and he is going to return next week. The guy who did not fare so well is Zonovan Knight. After giving us some flashes of greatness, he had just 6 carries for -2 yards in this game. The dream is officially dead. The Panthers embarrassed the Lions 37-23, and honestly, it was not that close. However, a winner in this one is Jared Goff. He continues to dominate through the air. He's going to be an excellent option next week against Chicago. Threw for over 330 in this one. I think 3 tutties as well. The Carolina running backs also crushed. They did whatever they wanted to against Detroit. They're my second and third winners. Both Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard combined for 33 carries, 290 yards at well over 8.5 a clip. I would, however, be hesitant to chase the points next week against the Bucs. As far as my loser from this game, it is the Detroit running game. Jamal Williams got hurt here. He is questionable at best for this coming week. And then DeAndre Swift had 4 carries for a whopping 12 yards. When Jared Goff leads the team with 15 rushing yards, you know you are in trouble. Now, I will say they could bounce back next week, but there is clearly plenty of risk here. On to the Bills game. They smoked the Bears 35-13. The winners here is the Bills running game. Weather conditions played a big part in this one, but Devin Singletary and James Cook, they combined for 23 carries, 205 yards, nearly 9 yards per touch there. And like Carolina, the Bengals in week 17 are going to be a much tougher matchup than they faced here, so we are not just going to be rolling them out to chase the points. My losers here are both of the quarterbacks. They struggled mightily to do much of anything in this game. Justin Fields is going to be just fine. He will bounce back this week coming up against Detroit. And Josh Allen remains a must start, but I think we have to temper expectations against a really good Bengals defense. Allen has been falling off a little bit as of late. The Saints are able to hold off the Browns 17-10. My winner here is Alvin Kamara. He scored for the first time since his 3-touchdown explosion way back in week number 8. He's going to remain a great play next week against Philly. My losers are everybody else here. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Juwan Johnson. All of these guys were underwhelming in a game that was heavily affected by terrible weather conditions. On to the Chiefs game. They dismantled the Seahawks 24-10. My winner here is Ken Walker. He returned as the centerpiece of Seattle's offense. He ran for 107 yards on 26 carries. And next week, in a must-win game against a tough Jets front, I will have him as a mid-tier running back too, because that defense is so formidable. The big loser here is Geno Smith. He's returned to earth over the last 2 weeks, and he's likely going to struggle next week against New York. I would be looking for another option, if at all possible, in your championship games. I just do not foresee him having a big game against that awesome secondary. My Minnesota Vikings are able to survive once again, this time against the Giants. That game ended on a 61-yard field goal as time expired, probably the best game of the week. And my winners here are TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jet Jefferson. I told you the explosion was coming from Hawk. He did not let me down. These two guys combined for 25 of Minnesota's 34 receptions on the day. They totaled 342 yards and 3 scores in it. They are both top 3 plays next week, even against a subpar matchup against Green Bay. The other winner is the Vikings defense. I was higher than consensus on them. I had them as a top 15 play. They did me one better and finished in the top 10. The losers here are the Giants and their receiving game, and it's not like they had a bad game. They actually got some decent production off of a multitude of players here. The problem is we have no idea which one of these guys we should start next week, so I would be looking elsewhere if I was looking at Giants receivers. The next game I'm looking at is the Bengals. They're able to hold on against the Patriots 22-18. They were up 22-0 in this one, and they did their best to give it all away, but they held on in the end thanks to a Ramondre Stevenson fumble, which we'll get to in a second. But my winner here is Joe Burrow. He's as matchup proof as any quarterback in the NFL. He had 375 yards, 3 tutties against this secondary. It was absolutely awesome. The loser here is pretty clear. It is Ramondre Stevenson. A week after going for a $175 on the ground, he struggled for just 30 yards here on 13 carries. 2.3 yards per carry if you're doing the math here. And it gets Miami coming up in week 17. They're a top 8 team in yard per carry over their last 3 games, so it is not going to get much easier for him. On to Baltimore, where the Ravens beat the Falcons 17-9. My winners here include Drake London, who paid off my faith in him with a big game. He caught 7 balls on, I think, 8 targets, 96 yards in total. Next week, in a great matchup against Arizona, he is a borderline wide receiver too. The other winner is Tyler Algier, who looks like the clear-cut RB1 in a very run-heavy offense in Atlanta. He had 18 carries, just 8 for Cordero Patterson. He has flex appeal to finish off the season. Couple of losers, both on the Baltimore side. Number 1 is Tyler Huntley. He just looks atrocious, first and foremost, and especially when you consider that the touchdown pass that he did throw shouldn't really have counted because the guy dropped and bobbled the ball on the way down. So if you were hoping for Lamar Jackson light with him, you have been sorely disappointed. The other is Mark Andrews. He struggled again, had just 45 yards on 5 targets. He will likely fall outside of my top 8 this week unless Lamar Jackson is good to go. On to the Houston game, where the Texans upset the crumbling Titans 19-14. My big winner is Derrick Henry. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He rushed for a $125 and a score. He had 23 carries as the only offense for Tennessee. They looked pitiful elsewhere. And the losers here are far and wide, so we're just gonna sum it up by saying this. Everybody else is a loser in this game. The only other potential starter that you're going to be able to pull from both of these teams is Brandon Cooks. He's got a smash matchup with the Jags next week. to San Francisco, where the 49ers outclassed the Commanders 37-20. My big winners are both from the 49ers side. It is Brock Purdy first. Another game, another strong 2-touchdown performance from Mr. Irrelevant. He is a great quarterback 2 option with a safe floor if that's what you're looking for in your championships. George Kittle is the other. He showed up once again big time just when owners needed him. He's racked up 213 yards and 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. The losers coming out of this game is the entire Washington offense, and that is because there is a potential move back to Carson Wentz. Taylor Heineke was actually benched in this game, and I think it is a downgrade across the board. I would be wary of playing Commanders next week, even in a decent matchup with Cleveland. To Dallas, where the Cowboys are able to slip by the Eagles 40-34. My big winner here is CeeDee Lamb. He continued his epic season with another monster performance against Philly's vaunted secondary. 10 catches on 11 targets, 120 receiving yards, and a pair of touchdowns, including the game winner. He remains an elite wide receiver 1. The loser here is the Dallas Cowboys defense. I know that Philly has a ton of playmakers. I also understand that they're set up to succeed even without Jalen Hurts. But to allow Gardner Minshew to throw for over 350 yards and a pair of scores on the road in a huge game for you is completely unacceptable. I know that Dallas got the win, but they are clearly outclassed by a fully healthy Philly team. The Steelers is the next game I'm looking at in a primetime affair, if you want to call it that, which you shouldn't. My first question is, how in the world was this game not flexed? I understand these are 2 of the more popular teams in the league, but there were much better options that we could have had the opportunity to see. The Steelers are able to keep hope alive. They win 13-10. My big winner here is Pat Freiermuth. The stud second-year tight end continues to produce no matter who or what the situation is at quarterback. He had 7 catches on 8 targets for 66 yards here. He is a reliable option every single week. The losers are the Raiders offense as a whole. I'm benching everybody next week against San Francisco, and yes, that probably includes Davante Adams. For those of you who thought that it was a bad take middle of the season when I recommended trading Adams off if you could get another elite player because his fantasy schedule was just that brutal, we have to look at what he's done over the last 2 weeks, both fantasy playoff games. He's been sub 50 finishes in both. He's racked up 43 yards total on just 6 catches. Don't want to say I told you so, but this is exactly what we were trying to avoid. The Packers game is next. The first one on Sunday, they hold off the Dolphins 26-20. Really the only one worth watching on Sunday, if we're being honest. My winners here are the combination of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They continue to dominate. They racked up 246 yards on 9 receptions. Simply put, they cannot be stopped. And my loser is unfortunately the quarterback of both of those guys in Tua Tagovailoa. Come on, man. What are you doing? 3 interceptions in the 4th quarter all but killed Miami's chances of winning this one, and he's now back in concussion protocol, meaning a week 17 start for him is anything but certain. The next game was the Rams nuking the Broncos 51-14. My winner here is Cam Akers, and though it is way too late for us to do much of anything with them, he showed why I had faith in him coming into the season. He had 23 carries, 118 yards, and 3 tutties against a really good Denver front. I think he is a solid flex option in a good matchup with the Chargers next week. The losers are pretty obvious. It's the entire Denver Broncos franchise. This was an embarrassment for a historically proud team. Nothing has worked as expected, and I get that, but this was the lowest of all lows, and with nowhere to turn, they fired Nathaniel Hackett today, which they absolutely should have done. The last game we're going to look at is the Bucs taking out the Cardinals in extra time, 19-16. My big winner here is Leonard Fournette. He tried to make a push for that RB1 job. He had 162 total yards, 29 touches, but he did average just 3.6 yards per carry. Rachaad White averaged 5.1 with the looks that he got. This backfield, I would think, is going to be absolutely maddening to predict this coming week. The losers here are anyone who had to watch this game. Neither team is entertaining, neither one is good, but there is some good news. If you are about to enter a food coma after a big Christmas dinner, this one provided a perfect time to take a nap. It did at least go into overtime, so if you were waiting towards the end of it, it at least had some drama to end it, but was not really worth turning the TV on for. And that is everything I got for my winners and losers in week 16. Hope you guys got some good information you could pull from it and use it to go on and try to win a championship. Please drop any questions, any comments you have down below. I want to be able to get back to you guys and help you out. Make sure you crush that like button if you enjoyed the content and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz, and I will see you next time.